Hey everyone, we're diving into some interesting stuff today. It's about the political scene up in Canada, especially some things Prime Minister Justin Trudeau has been saying.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, we got this opinion piece, and it's pretty strong. They call what he's doing the tyranny of virtue. Pretty heavy stuff. What do you think? Does that even make sense?
Yeah. Tyranny of virtue. I guess that means someone thinks they're so right, so morally good, that they just shut down anyone who disagrees.
Right, like they can't even imagine someone having a different opinion.
Yeah. And the article says Trudeau's doing this. They're talking about a speech he gave at the Halifax Chamber of Commerce. He basically told Canadians to make the right choice in the election.
Oh yeah, I remember that. And he even said what he considered the wrong choices, right?
Exactly, like reversing gun control, questioning women's rights, getting rid of childcare help, that kind of thing.
Yeah, he drew a pretty clear line.
He did. And that can be really effective,
Mhm.
Making things sound like simple choices. Good versus bad, it gets people fired up. Yeah, it's like, you with us or against us?
Exactly. It rallies the troops, but it can also have a downside.
What do you mean?
Well, it can alienate people. What if you basically agree with him, but maybe you have a different idea about how to do childcare, for example?
Yeah, it's like he's not allowing for any nuance.
Exactly. It shuts down any real discussion. You're either with him or you're completely wrong.
Mhm.
And the article points out he's doing this with other stuff too, like the carbon tax.
Yeah, he basically said people who are struggling with it just don't get it, right? Like they don't understand what good policy really is.
Right. And that gets to a really tough thing for politicians. How do you do what's good in the long run, even if it's hard on people right now?
Yeah, because people need to be able to afford groceries and now W, not in 20 years when the planet is saved, right?
Exactly. It's a tough balance. The carbon tax is a good example.
Mm.
A lot of experts say it's necessary to fight climate change, but it definitely hits some people harder than others.
Yeah, and the article even quotes Trudeau admitting that people are having a hard time, but he still pushes this long-term view. It comes across as a little out of touch.
It does. It's risky. If you only focus on the future, you might forget about the people who are struggling today.
But then if you only focus on today's problems, you might never solve the big long-term stuff.
Exactly. It's finding that sweet spot that's hard, and that's where a lot of people are criticizing Trudeau.
It seems like he's trying to do both. Be the strong leader, the guy with the vision, but also acknowledge that people are hurting. But then there's this weird thing he does. He talks about wanting less division in politics, everyone getting along.
Yeah, less fighting.
Right. But then in the same breath, he says voting for the conservatives is the wrong choice.
Oh, yeah, I see what you mean.
Yeah.
That's where this tyranny of virtue thing really starts to make sense. Because it's like he's saying, if you don't agree with me, you're not just wrong, you're morally wrong.
Right. And how can you have a real discussion with someone when they think you're practically evil just for disagreeing?
Exactly. That's the problem. It's good to have strong beliefs, to be passionate about what you think is right for the country. But when you start acting like you're the only moral person in the room, it pushes people away.
And I think that's what the article is getting at. It's not that Trudeau can't be passionate, it's that he's crossed a line into something else.
I think so too. And this is important for everyone, not just Canadians. We're seeing this kind of thing everywhere.
Yeah.
How do you stand up for what you believe in without shutting down everyone who sees things differently?
It's a tough question.
Let's dig into some specifics. Like when Trudeau said to make the right choice, what stands out to you about how he said it?
Well, he definitely sounded like he was 100% sure he was right. Like, not just a different opinion, but the morally right thing to do.
Yeah, there's a real sense of moral certainty there. And that can be powerful. People want clear answers, good versus evil, that kind of thing.
It's like he's saying, be on the good guys' team.
Exactly. And by making his opponents the bad guys, it creates this us versus them thing. Great for his supporters, but not so much for everyone else.
So good for winning elections, maybe, but bad for actually having real conversations.
Yeah, it's a tough line to walk. You need to be strong, show you're a leader, but you can't just shut down anyone who disagrees.
Is this just a Trudeau thing, or do other politicians do this too?
It's getting more common, unfortunately. Social media, the news always yelling at us makes everything more extreme, and politicians use that to get attention.
Yeah, it's like we can't talk about anything complicated anymore, just slogans and yelling.
And that's dangerous for democracy. If we can't even talk to each other, how are we going to solve problems together?
This is especially weird for Trudeau because he used to be all about hope and bringing people together, right? Sunny ways and all that.
Right, exactly. So this change is kind of jarring. It's like he's a different guy now.
Maybe it's on purpose, though, getting tougher as the election gets closer.
Could be. Politicians change how they talk, depending on who they're talking to and what's going on.
So, what's a normal person supposed to do?
Yeah.
It's hard enough to follow politics without all this extra stuff going on.
You got to be careful. Don't believe everything you hear, especially if it's something you already agree with. Go look for different opinions. See what other people are saying.
So don't just read stuff that makes me feel good because it agrees with me.
Yeah, challenge yourself a bit. Don't just read the headline. Actually look at the arguments, the evidence.
Like, I need to be my own fact checker.
Exactly. But it's not just about facts. It's about figuring out who's talking, what they want, and if they might be leaving stuff out.
Okay, that makes sense. But what about actually talking to people who disagree with me? That's almost impossible these days.
It's hard, for sure, but super important. We need to figure out how to disagree without hating each other. Find some common ground.
Yeah, but how? Everyone is so stuck in their own side.
Start by listening, really trying to get where the other person's coming from, their experiences, their values, why they see the world the way they do. You might not agree, but at least try to understand.
It's like, remember they're a person too, even if their ideas about how to fix things are totally different.
Exactly. And once you've listened, then you can share your side. But keep it about the issue, not attacking them. And don't be afraid to admit you don't know everything.
So it's not about winning the argument, but about actually talking and maybe learning something.
Yeah, you might even find out you agree on some things, even if you disagree on how to get there.
Finding that common ground instead of just fighting all the time.
And that's what we've been talking about this whole time. Think for yourself. Don't just believe everything you see. Have real conversations, even when it's hard. Remember, we're all in this together, even if we don't always see eye to eye.
So is Trudeau really a tyrant of virtue, like the article says?
That's a strong phrase. It's not just about having strong beliefs. It's about using those beliefs to shut everyone else down.
So is Trudeau actually trying to convince people, or is he just saying, agree with me or you're bad?
Tough question. It's not always easy to figure out what someone really means, but it's something to think about.
It makes you realize that even simple political slogans can be really complicated when you dig deeper.
They sure can. And this isn't just a Canadian problem, it's happening everywhere. How do we have strong beliefs but still talk to each other? How do we disagree but still work together? Big questions we all need to think about.
And in the end, it comes down to each of us. How we choose to learn about things, how we talk to people, how we take part in politics. Democracy only works if we all do our part.
That's a great point. And that leads us to something really important. What can we actually do about all this?
Yeah, let's talk about that. Give people some ideas to actually make things better. All right, so after all that, what can we actually do about this? It feels kind of overwhelming.
It's a lot, yeah. But we can start with being a little more skeptical. Don't just believe everything you hear, especially if it makes you feel good because it agrees with you already.
So, like, don't just stick to the same news sites or whatever, even if I like them.
Right. Try to find different viewpoints. Read stuff that challenges you a bit.
That's hard, though.
It is. But don't just read the headlines. Really look at what they're saying, what evidence they have, and who they are.
It's like being my own BS detector, right?
Yeah, exactly. It's not just about facts. It's about figuring out if the whole source is even trustworthy.
Okay, I think I get that. But what about talking to people who totally disagree with me? That's like the hardest thing ever.
It is tough, but super important. We got to figure out how to have disagreements without, going to war with each other.
But everyone's so dug into their own side, it feels like.
And that's why listening is the first step. Really listening, not just waiting for your turn to talk. Try to get why they think, what their experiences are.
Even if I think they're totally wrong.
Yep. Remember, they probably think they're trying to make things better too, even if their way is completely different from yours.
It's like remembering everyone's human, I guess.
Exactly. Then, once you've listened, you can share your side. But keep it about the issue, not about attacking them personally.
So not like, you're stupid for thinking that.
Haha, right. More like, here's why I see things differently. And be honest. Sometimes you don't have all the answers either.
It's about the conversation, not about winning or losing, right?
Exactly. And sometimes you might even find out you agree on more than you thought.
Yeah, like maybe you both want the same thing, just different ways to get there.
And that's what it's all about, finding that common ground instead of always fighting. And that's what this whole deep dive has been about, right? Think for yourself. Look at things from different sides. Talk to people, even when it's hard. We're all in this together, even when it doesn't feel like it.
It's like we all have a job to do to make democracy work. Not just voting, but how we talk to each other, how we learn about stuff.
You got it. And it all starts with us, with each individual person making those choices. That's how we build a better world, step by step.
Makes you feel like you can actually make a difference.
You can. Every little bit counts.
Well, that's a great note to end on. Gives us all something to think about. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive, everyone. We'll see you next time.